Hello, hello. Good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon on September 26th, 2023. I want to thank you for joining me today. I did have some very good feedback yesterday, so I want to thank you um, for joining me on yesterday's live stream. And let me know if you are able to hear me okay. I know that there is an extraordinary amount of censoring going on with my channel and interruptions. So if you could please give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be incredibly helpful. Um, all right. So, in light of a tweet or an X post that I just read from somebody I consider a friend, his name is JJ. He lives in the Tenderloin area of San Francisco. And he just posted something that was so horrific and so tragic. And, this is a question that I've been asking for a while now. Do we really have a World Economic Forum Klaus Schwab problem, or do we have a cartel border fentanyl problem? And so that is the question I want to present to you. And then I want to go through I'm going to go ahead and share a video or a portion of a video that was played 5 years ago, and then I want to bring you up to speed. So just give me 1 second here while I organize my tabs. And again, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It is, the support and the comments that I got yesterday were really encouraging and really helpful. So having you, having you come on board and be a part of this is really inspiring to me. And so I just, again, I want to thank you for that. So without further ado, what I want to do is share a video that was streamed 5 years ago by Scott Adams. And I'm going to let the video speak for itself. So just give me 1 minute while I find it. All right, you should be able to see that right here. This is episode 242, Scott Adams, Fentanyl, Flake, Canada, and other stuff. This is from 4 years ago. And if you notice in the description of the video, fentanyl mainly from China, and 49,000 deaths, overdose deaths last year. So what I want to do is play this for you with the understanding that this is an incredibly emotional video. I'm not going to play the entire video, but I am going to play the part that matters. So if you'll just bear with me here.
Hello, James. Hello, Donna. Hello, Chris. Tyler and Fleet. Come on in here. Oh, I hope all of you are having a good day. My day is not so good, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. So, let's talk about fentanyl. But before we do, please join me for the simultaneous sip. Grab your cup, your mug, your beverage. Bring it to your lips. So, you've heard of fentanyl. It's a painkiller, very powerful painkiller, but there's a very small margin between killing your pain and killing the person. As a result, fentanyl is the #1 drug overdose killer in the United States. I think 72,000 people died of drug overdoses last year in the United States. 72,000 people. 72,000 people died of a drug overdose in the United States last year. Fentanyl, #1 cause. By far, fentanyl is the top cause. I believe it was the cause of Prince's death. I believe it was the cause of Michael Jackson's death. And the interesting thing is that China is apparently the main source of the illegal flow. Now, that's what the United States says. China says not so much, but you would sort of expect that. Now, the president tweeted back in August that China was the major source of fentanyl. And he, called on China to do more. Actually, I think he referred to it as almost a form of warfare, or some people have. Now, if another country was shipping something to us that was killing, let's say, 30,000 people a year, doesn't that look like a war? Because I believe Vietnam only took 50,000 American lives. There were many more were injured. But I think the entire Vietnam War killed 50,000 Americans. Fentanyl from China, probably killed 5 times that many. Eric Bolling's son, you say? I wasn't aware that that's what killed Eric Bolling's son. So, yesterday morning, I did my Periscope. I think many of you saw me. And at the end of the Periscope, right after that, I got a text message. And the text message said that there was a 911 call on another line that's on my Verizon. Yesterday I got a call right after the 911 alert from my ex-wife, who told me that my stepson, the little boy that I raised from the age of 2, was dead. He died last night, or maybe early in the morning yesterday, we're not sure, in his bed, from what appears to be a fentanyl overdose. The coroners found a fentanyl patch on his arm. If you don't know what a fentanyl patch is, I didn't either. It's a little patch, it's about this big, very small, about the size of a postage stamp, and it's very popular now among addicts. A little patch they put on their shoulder, and it feeds a continuous flow of fentanyl. Now, that may not have been the actual thing that killed him. It could be that he was also trying to get Xanax. So we have some information that he was trying to score some Xanax. Now, if you don't know this topic, you're lucky. But Xanax is mostly counterfeit. The Xanax that the kids are doing, the addicts are doing, is not really Xanax. It's combinations of other drugs that people are passing off as Xanax. And close to 100% of them are fake. One of the prime ingredients that are in this fake Xanax are fentanyl. So there's a fairly good likelihood that my stepson, Justin, now deceased, probably got 2 doses of fentanyl yesterday. Now, we weren't surprised because it had been a long battle with addiction since he was 14. He had a very bad head injury when he was 14 from a bicycle accident. and he was wearing a helmet, but it was still a bad accident. And his behavior changed after the accident. He sort of lost his ability to make good decisions. I'm not sure he ever made great decisions, but he lost his impulse control. He lost his fear. And in California, if you reach a certain size physically, if a teenager is a certain size, if you tell them to do something and they don't do it, you have certain recourse, but in California you don't have much. So you can't physically restrain somebody, and you also can't keep them from getting drugs. So somebody would really have to want to get better, and he never wanted to get better. From the time he started doing drugs, he wanted to do more drugs, and that's all he wanted. His quality of life he didn't think was good enough for a variety of reasons that didn't have anything to do with lifestyle. So I got to watch my dead, blue, bloated son taken out on a stretcher in front of his mother and biological father. And because of the law in California, there was actually nothing that we could do. Now, in other states, I understand that you can actually commit somebody. You can have them essentially locked up in some kind of a rehab facility, and if they tried to walk out, they just couldn't. But in California, if a kid wants to walk out the door, they just can. And he would, and did. And, he had a few, so, if I don't see myself for a while, you'll know why. So, fentanyl, mostly from China, I understand, probably killed my son yesterday, my stepson. So, as we're negotiating with China, I hope we can do something about that problem. I understand China is doing a little bit in terms of controlling some of the instrumentation used to make these drugs, etc. But here's my opinion. At this level of problem, if we, the United States, know which Chinese executives are behind this, and I would bet we do by now, we probably know which specific pharmaceutical companies are making the drug because I believe they're made by actual legitimate incorporated type companies in China. But they, of course, know that there's big leakage, and I'm sure that that's good for their profits. But if we know who those Chinese executives are, I would like to call for their execution. Now, in China, if you mess up, if you're a Chinese executive of a company and let's say you do something where you steal some money or you cross the government in some way, they'll actually just take you out and kill you. I'm not even sure they have due process in the usual way. So I'd like to offer to China, to President Xi, who I do respect, that to give him first chance to take care of the problem himself. If you don't, I think we can hold China responsible for perhaps 30,000 deaths per year in this country.
Okay, so let me get rid of this. Okay, so that was Scott Adams from about 4 or 5 years ago when his stepson, Justin, died. And I just want to make sure you guys can still hear me. Yeah, okay. And I thought that that was really, I thought that that was really important to bring up as I continue with this broadcast today. And I wanted everybody to watch that and really absorb what he had to say. JP wants to remind some people about, since this is a question about whether do we have a World Economic Forum problem or do we have a fentanyl border problem, a cartel border fentanyl China problem? And so I'm presenting that question to you legitimately, and JP wants to add a comment.
Hi, everyone. So I'll get close to the mic. For a long time, I couldn't put the pieces together with China. We knew something was going on. We knew it wasn't the World Economic Forum. I mean, we have called the World Economic Forum out as a marketing department for the billionaire class. And, what they say is not what's actually happening. Sure, there's some shenanigans going on with the ruling class, and they're, carrying on as they usually do, saying we should all eat crickets when they're eating, exotic food. And, but that's what they do.
Cuisine.
Yeah, well, cuisine, that's what they call it. See, we have to get in the mindset that it's still food, and they call it cuisine, but it's food. Okay, so we have to stop thinking like the ruling class, or like thinking like they want us to think. So they want us to think that Klaus Schwab is Dr. Evil and that, he's going to, do whatever, right? So whatever your particular issue is, that's fine. But please keep in mind that you should listen and try to put pieces together. I was just not convinced that China had anything to do with anything until pretty recently, and I started seeing the pieces get put together. And Julie has some evidence, she's going to talk about it later in a little bit. But I intuited about a month or two ago that that Chinese. I found out that China was the leading maker of fentanyl and produced it, and I knew that. That they were in Mexico, and that the Mexican cartels were in San Francisco distributing fentanyl. And it didn't take much for me to put together the fact that China was probably working with Mexican cartels because, dirty deals are done dirt cheap in Mexico. And cartels are pretty powerful. And I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't working with with Chinese companies, if not the Chinese government, the state. And we know now through other people talking that we are probably under attack by China right now. And it's being done in a unique way, in a way that we just don't even expect. They're not coming over with soldiers and tanks and mortar fire and bombing campaigns or anything like that. There's no hardware happening. What they're doing instead is they're infiltrating this country through means that you wouldn't even recognize. And this is why we keep saying it's the mundane. The mundane is the problem. The mundane is what's going to hurt you. Right now, a lot of the people coming across the border from Mexico are not Mexicans. They're not Central Americans. They're not even South Americans for the most part. They're coming from all over the world. And a lot of them, and this has been documented by RFK Jr. in his video and others, that the men that are coming, that the people coming across the border are mostly men. They don't have women and children with them, and they are of military age. And they're coming from places like Africa and Central Europe and Afghanistan and all kinds of other places. They're not Chinese nationals, but they are coming from countries and regions that are under the influence of China through the Belt and Road initiatives. So it's easy to surmise that they are sending individuals over to that border to cross the border. And to top it all off, the Biden administration is doing nothing about keeping track of these people, these individuals. They're not arresting them. And if they do hold them, they take their name and then they release them, and they don't know where they go to. This to me sounds like an invasion. Between the cartels dealing fentanyl, which is killing hundreds, if not thousands of people a year in San Francisco alone, but throughout the country, it sounds like this is an attack. It sounds like they're sending potential soldiers over the border. And they're also occupying a lot of the country through purchasing. And as we've also pointed out, the Chinese government is also moving in to build bridges and, build infrastructure. This is probably part of what the Biden administration was setting up with the infrastructure bill. And the reason that this is all going on, and we've pointed this out before, at least Julie has, is that the United States is still in debt with China, and they need to pay off that debt. And it's going to be done through bodies. Yeah, exactly. And through other means too. Like they took over the port in where was that? Haifa in Israel and other places. These are ways for them to make money. They don't need to get paid back in cash. They can get paid back in other ways. And so the Biden administration, who is basically, in cahoots with the Chinese government,
The Biden cartel.
the Biden crime syndicate, because we know that we're being distracted with the Trump show while the Biden show is going on. I'm right in front of the microphone. I'm fine.
All right.
While the Biden show is going on, under our noses, nobody's reporting on it. Nobody's talking about it.
Mm-mm.
And yet, he's being indicted and tried, or I don't even know what's going on because nobody's really reporting on it.
Yeah.
So we have a criminal in the White House working with an enemy of sorts of the United States. And it looks like the United States is being inundated with potential fighting age men that could essentially, turn on given orders and start doing things, breaking shit. So we're not sure what that's going to look like, but we do know that the fentanyl crisis, as it's called, is part of these initiatives. And it's part of China's way of thinning out the herd in the United States. And it's part of their war tactics, I believe.
I agree. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I really didn't mean to go into a monologue, but I really felt like, I needed to kind of run this down so that people quite understand.
Right. So, JP, do you think that we have a World Economic Forum problem?
No.
Or do you think that we have a border fentanyl cartel / China problem?
No, it's the latter, not the former.
Right.
The World Economic Forum is not. Okay, what's going on there?
What happened?
Are we there? Yeah, we're here. Okay.
That was weird.
That was weird. Was that on your phone? I think it was. I think your phone picked up. Yeah, it looked like your phone picked up.
Yeah, but I'm okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, that was weird.
Technical weirdness.
There's a lot of people that think that Klaus Schwab is worse than he is. He's nothing but a figurehead. He's the head of a marketing company called the World Economic Forum, and that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks for your input.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay with me?
I'll stay with you for a minute and then I got to get back.
So, in light of all that, in light of this information, what I want to do is share a statistic. I see. I'm sorry, guys, technical stuff. Something about your
iPhone. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So let me share this screen. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is the statistics for this was from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in the city and county of San Francisco, and this is from January of this year. So if you look at the blue line, the light blue line is fentanyl, and if you can see how it's sorry, I'm dealing with how do you go? Let's see. I don't know if you can see that a little bit better, but that blue line tracks with total deaths. Okay, so the yellow line is methamphetamine and the green line is cocaine, but that blue line tracks with all of the deaths. So what the outcome of this very long and detailed report from the chief medical examiner in San Francisco earlier this year up into June or July of this year. So this is based on, they do it by the month. As you can see, I'm scrolling through January, February, and each month the fentanyl deaths track with the with all deaths in the city of San Francisco, April, May, and I think it stops in July. So this is July of 2023. So for the first 7 months of this year, they did a very detailed report on fentanyl deaths and overdoses in general in San Francisco, and they attributed most of those deaths to fentanyl. All right, so I wanted to show you that report. Let me go ahead and get out of that screen. Let's see. Okay. And then the next screen that I want to show you is the national statistics. Okay, so this is from the National Institute of Health, NIH.gov. National drug-involved overdose deaths, the number among all ages by gender from 1999 to 2021. And look at that spike from 2020 to 2021. And it's even more now that we've had, 2022 is behind us. And obviously we're almost through 2023. So I'm curious to see what the statistics are today up into 2023. So I just wanted to show you that statistic. This includes the deaths with underlying causes of unintentional drug poisoning, suicide drug poisoning, homicide drug poisoning, or drug poisoning of undetermined intent as coded in the International Classification of Diseases, 10th revision. The source is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Center for Health Statistics. So, even though we do have all sorts of problems with the CDC and the NIH right now, they are still tracking drug-involved overdose deaths. So just, really, this is just a generic screenshot from that website. I wanted to show you that as well. And then I wanted to show you some personal Twitter or X commentary. So let me get rid of that screen and bring you back. So hang on 1 second here. All right. So here is a couple of tweets I want to share with you. Let's see. The first one is from JJ Smith. This is somebody that lives in San Francisco. I've never met him personally, but I would consider him a friend. Read this tweet. This gentleman was in this position since midnight, and nobody decided to check on him until I walked by and tapped him on the shoulder and realized he was already gone. Okay, so, oops. Sorry, let me get back to that tweet, and I want to show you there's the body, and this is how he found the body. So that's how he found the body. And then finally, after he tapped him on the shoulder and realized he was dead, knowing JJ, he immediately called 911, and the medical examiner probably came to the scene and they covered the body. This has happened so often in San Francisco. It's really disturbing, the amount of times that this has happened in San Francisco at this point. Let me get rid of that screen and take you back to another one. I'll take you back to this Chronicle tweet, the San Francisco Chronicle. Overdose deaths have always been a problem, but they've assumed a newly toxic dimension in the past 5 years as the highly potent and easy to overdose on opioid fentanyl mushroomed in the drug trade in San Francisco and nationwide. And that national statistic I showed you before can corroborate this San Francisco tweet. We have a real problem. It's like the Chronicle says, it's like a zombie apocalypse. Is it no wonder that all those years ago, probably around 2018 or so, it was the CDC that put out that message, how to prepare for a zombie apocalypse. And to remind you, I opened this piece with Scott Adams. He's the creator of Dilbert. This was pre his being taken down by the establishment. He was taken down by the establishment, I want to say about 6-8 months ago. And so the video that I played when I opened up my broadcast today was his video from, I want to say it was 2018. So that's 5 years now. That's 5 years ago that his stepson, Justin, overdosed on fentanyl. All right. So this was, before the COVID operation. This was before all of this. So, but now we are in 2023, and look what's happening. We're in the zombie apocalypse that the CDC warned about all those years ago, right? So let me share another screen. Let me just bring that in. So this is from Mary Bono, shares this quote, which I thought was really telling. The quote reads, "I don't give an F about the overdoses," a middle-aged dealer told a Chronicle reporter while handing fentanyl to a woman for $10. "You make your choice to put that S in your mouth. That's your business. I need to make my money." So this is the attitude that a lot of Americans have regarding drug overdoses, which is that it's the victim's fault. It's the people who are, ingesting the drug. It's their bad choices. And we're constantly, as a society, not we on this platform, but as a society, the language is that, we should blame the victim for falling prey to the addiction entrapment scenario that is fentanyl, right? So I wanted to show you that quote because that really does sort of illuminate the attitude that the general population has about these victims. Let me go ahead and share another screen. Let's see. Let's look at Victor. All right. So this is from Victor Bigham Family Fun. Why doesn't anyone do something about that? It's clearly not a money issue. So why are we letting people die? San Francisco is poised to surpass a record-breaking year for overdose deaths. Now, this tweet is from yesterday. There's so much fentanyl that it's contaminated other drugs that are sold on the street, like meth and crack cocaine. It's in everything. Tom Wolfe, a former drug user and current recovery advocate, told Fox News. He said the surge in overdoses is because the amount of fentanyl on the streets has increased threefold compared to 2020. "I see suffering and despair on many blocks," he added. "There are literally thousands of people in tents or on the street who are almost all using meth and fentanyl." So that tells you that what the establishment in San Francisco is trying to tell you, what my former supervisor by the name of Dean Preston is trying to tell you, and what the mayor of San Francisco herself is trying to tell you is that, quotes like I just read to you from Tom Wolfe, who is a former drug user and current recovery advocate, they're trying to tell you that this is fake news. That this picture that you are seeing and all of that information that I just shared about the national rise of fentanyl overdoses, the San Francisco medical examiner coming out and saying that the number one cause of overdose death in 2023 was from fentanyl use, the live stream from Scott Adams himself from 5 years ago talking about the death of his stepson who died of a fentanyl overdose. They're trying to tell you that all of that is fake news. That's what the supervisors, and the mayor of San Francisco would want you to believe. Let's share another screen. Okay. Yes, according to San Francisco's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the Bay Area suffered nearly 3 times as many deaths from fentanyl overdoses than from COVID-19 in 2020. And I would even add to that you might be looking at more fentanyl-related injuries or more fentanyl-related deaths than you might have from the countermeasure injuries or deaths. And when I say countermeasure, I mean the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, this is from September of 2021. So we have to keep, the timing of this in perspective. But currently, 2 years later in 2023, the fentanyl deaths have skyrocketed. All right. Now, this is a message from 2021 where the San Francisco's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, according to them, the Bay Area suffered nearly 3 times as many deaths from fentanyl overdoses than COVID-19 in 2020. This is why we have the continuation of the national emergency for the opioid epidemic, which started in 2017, and it's continuing to renew every 3 months in perpetuity. So, and there's a whole dialogue around the organizations and the nonprofits and something called the harm reduction policy, which benefits from the statistics, right? Which benefits from the fentanyl overdoses. Okay, so what I want to do very quickly is share with you a couple of videos I made, and then I want to end this video on probably the most important point. So let me share the screen with you. So this is on my channel. Actually, let me go. Let me share a different screen with you. Here it is. All right, so right here at the top where it says uninformed consent, it has about a little over 4,000 views, 4.3 thousand views. I would like you to watch that. This talks about nudging, which is, obviously a CIA program that was started by, his name escapes me, but watch it and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Nudging. This also talks about the renewal of the national emergency for the opioid epidemic. So, it's not very long. I don't even think it's 30 minutes. So go for it. Just watch it and see if you can learn a little something from, the fact that we're not being informed properly about what's going on. The next screen that I want to show you is a question that I have. And it might seem a little bit out of left field, but it ties into the very last point that I want to make. So I asked Google, I went to Google and I said, why is Merrick Garland being interviewed? Wednesday's hearing comes following an indictment against President Joe Biden's son, 2 federal indictments against Trump, and amid a House impeachment inquiry against Biden. Several GOP Republicans have also floated the idea of impeaching Garland. All right, so that might seem a little bit out of left field, but I'm getting to a point. So let me go ahead and get rid of that. And I recommend watching, his hearing, watching the questions that are asked, watching the way that he responds to the questions. I don't need to get into any of that. Lots of people do. But let me go ahead and get rid of that and share the last screen that I want to share with you, which is this. 3 Chinese chemical manufacturing companies and 5 employees have been charged with conspiring to manufacture fentanyl. This is from June 23rd, 2023. So almost exactly a little over 2 months ago, right? Or 3 months ago. June 23 to July 23, July to August. Okay, so 3 months ago. Okay. So defendants, and I'm going to read this because this is from the justice.gov. So this is from the Department of Justice. Defendants allegedly imported fentanyl precursors into the United States and worked with Mexican cartels to manufacture and distribute fentanyl in the United States. All right, so you can read along with me. This is a prosecution that is the first of its kind. Earlier today, and remember this is June 2023, earlier today at the federal courthouse in Brooklyn, 2 indictments were unsealed that detail criminal conspiracies by companies and employees based in China to manufacture and distribute fentanyl in the United States. This prosecution is among the first ever in the United States to charge Chinese chemical manufacturing companies with supplying precursor chemicals used to make fentanyl in the U.S. The first indictment charges Anhui Rincheng Technology Co., Anhul Moker New Material Technology Co., Shutong Wang and Shifeng Ruan with conspiracy to manufacture and distribute fentanyl, manufacture of fentanyl, and other related offenses. In addition, the indictment charges those same defendants, as well as Jinyu Zhao and Yu Gao, with illegally concealing their activities, including through customs fraud and introducing misbranded drugs into the United States marketplace. The indictment also charges Rencheng, Wang, and Ruan with conspiracy to distribute butanetazine, a controlled substance. The second indictment charges Hefei GSK Trade Co. Limited, also known as Hebei Jikusuke Trading Co. Sorry, my pronunciation is horrible. And Hebei Sinaloa Trading Company Ltd. and Limited, and Queen Lee with similar offenses, including conspiracy to manufacture and distribute fentanyl, manufacture of fentanyl, conspiracy to distribute a List 1 chemical, distribution of a List 1 chemical, customs fraud conspiracy, introducing misbranded drugs into interstate commerce, and distribution of metanetazine, a controlled substance. Merrick Garland, United States Attorney General, Breon Peace, United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Lisa O. Monaco, United States Deputy Attorney General, and Ann Milgram, Administrator, Drug Enforcement Administration, Keechon L. Sewell, Commissioner, New York City Police Department, and Stephen A. Negrelli, Acting Superintendent, New York State Police, announced the charges. So Merrick Garland is working with all these people and spearheading this prosecution, which is the first of its kind. So I would ask you, why is the GOP wanting to unseat this? This is really important. And who else has covered this? I don't know. I don't pay attention to, alternative media that much, or even regular media. Has anybody even covered this prosecution, which is the first of its kind? As alleged, the defendants knowingly distributed the chemical building blocks of fentanyl to the United States and Mexico, even providing advice on how they should be used to manufacture this dangerous drug, which inflicts untold tragedy in New York City, Long Island, and across the nation, stated the United States Attorney Peace. This prosecution shows that the companies and individuals who fuel our nation's deadly opioid epidemic, wherever they are located, will be found and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. When I announced in April that the Justice Department had taken significant enforcement actions against the Sinaloa cartel, I promised that the Justice Department would never forget the victims of the fentanyl epidemic, said Attorney General Merrick B. Garland. I also promised that we would never stop working to hold accountable those who bear responsibility for it. And that includes not only going after the leaders of the cartels, their drug and gun traffickers, their money launderers, security forces, and clandestine lab operators. It also includes stopping the Chinese chemical companies that are supplying the cartels with the building blocks they need to manufacture deadly fentanyl. I'm going to pause here and make a statement. On this platform here, this very small, very censored platform, we've said over and over again that we don't vote. But if we did vote, we are one issue voters, and our one issue right now is fentanyl. We're one issue voters. And so the actual issue that we feel needs the most scrutiny and needs the most focus is the fentanyl trafficking via the Sinaloa cartel and via the Chinese manufacturing companies. So you've got your attorney general who, they're prosecuting, they're doing it. So why do Republicans, I would ask you, why do you want to unseat this man? Isn't this the number one issue in the United States? This is a war on the American domestic population. Today's announcement is a down payment on our pledge to use every tool in the government's arsenal in every corner of the globe to protect American communities, said Deputy Attorney General Lisa O. Monaco. The Justice Department will not rest or relent in investigating and prosecuting every link of the fentanyl supply chain, including the PRC, and that's the People's Republic of China, companies and executives who produce and export vast quantities of the precursor chemicals the drug cartels need to peddle their poison. There can be no safe haven. So remember at the very beginning of this broadcast, I played a Scott Adams broadcast from 5 years ago where he was appealing to the powers that be to go after the executives. Well, that's exactly what's happening, Mr. Adams. That's exactly what's happening right now. As of June of 2023, they're going after the People's Republic of China companies and executives who are exporting vast quantities of these chemicals to make fentanyl. Today's announcement is a considerable step forward in our unrelenting fight against fentanyl, targeting the threat where it starts, said DEA Administrator Annie Milgram. These companies and individuals are alleged to have knowingly supplied drug traffickers in the United States and Mexico with the ingredients and scientific know-how needed to make fentanyl, a drug that continues to devastate families and communities across the United States, killing Americans from all walks of life, targeting entire criminal drug networks from the source of supply to the last mile of distribution is critical to saving American lives. The DEA will not stop until this crisis ends. Today's charges are further proof of the unceasing, wide-ranging efforts the New York City Police Department will undergo to rid our city of illegal drugs, said the New York Police Department Commissioner Sewell. No matter where or how this poison is manufactured and distributed, we are united with our local, state, federal, and international law enforcement partners in the fight against drug traffickers. To that end, I thank and commend the U.S. Department of Justice, the Office of the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the New York State Police, and everyone else involved in this case for their exceptional work. I want to pause again and say, why do I feel like the COVID operation was sort of acting as cover for this, this war that was waged on us via Chinese manufacturing companies and the Mexican cartels? Why do I feel, and is this because the United States policyholders and the powers that be in government did not want to scare the population and let them know that we have cartels in our midst? And so I will ask you the question again. Do we have a World Economic Forum problem with Klaus Schwab and his silly outfits and his funny accent? Or do we have a legitimate cartel fentanyl drug problem, which could be construed as a border problem? New York State Police Acting Superintendent Negrelli stated the prosecution of these criminals reinforces that we will continue to be vigilant in stopping the flow of dangerous illegal drugs into our country. Manufacturing and distribution of these highly addictive drugs perpetuates a cycle of substance abuse, which poses a significant threat to safety and quality of life within our communities. Drug trafficking organizations of any kind will not be tolerated. I thank the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York and our law enforcement partners for their continuing commitment to identify, arrest, and prosecute anyone who attempts to infiltrate these dangerous drugs into our nation. The misuse of fentanyl, a Schedule II controlled substance, has resulted in one of the deadliest drug threats the United States has ever faced. It is a highly addictive synthetic opioid that is approximately 50 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than morphine. As alleged in the indictments, the defendant companies supplied precursor chemicals to the United States and Mexico, among other places, knowing they would be used to manufacture fentanyl. The defendant companies openly advertised their products all over the world, including to the United States and Mexico, on social media platforms. They also sent their chemical products to the United States and Mexico by boat and by air, using public and private international mail and package carriers. To prevent detection and interception of chemical products at the borders, the defendant companies employed deceptive and fraudulent practices such as mislabeling packages, falsifying customs forms, and making false declarations at border crossings. The chemicals distributed by the defendants included all the materials necessary to manufacture fentanyl via the most common pathways. The defendant companies attempted to obfuscate their distribution of fentanyl precursors by adding masking molecules, which slightly alter the chemical signature of the underlying precursor chemicals. By changing the chemical signature, an altered substance could evade testing protocols and relevant regulations by appearing to be a new substance. Such masking molecules are easily removed, thus enabling the purchaser to return the substance to its original form as a fentanyl precursor. sorry about the honking in the background. The defendant companies not only produced and distributed masked precursors, but also provided instructions about how to remove the masking molecules upon receipt, thus helping their customers to more efficiently obtain banned precursors and produce fentanyl. The defendants also gave instructions on how to improve fentanyl yield and advice on which chemicals to buy to replace the banned precursor products. Mexican drug trafficking organizations, including but not limited to the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, have increasingly availed themselves of the fentanyl precursors and masked fentanyl precursors developed and distributed by the defendant companies and companies like them. The chemicals provided by the defendant companies have enabled such cartels and other drug trafficking organizations to produce fentanyl in clandestine laboratories in Mexico on a massive scale for subsequent distribution in the United States and elsewhere. The materials and instructions provided by the defendant companies and companies like them have directly caused and contributed to the influx of deadly fentanyl into the United States. The charges in the indictment are allegations, and the defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. The government's case is being handled by the Office's International Narcotics and Money Laundering Section. Assistant United States Attorneys Francisco Navarro, Eric Paulson, Chand Edwards Balfour, Adam Amir, and Saritha Komatiridi are in charge of the prosecution with assistance from the EDNY Special Agent George Dietz and paralegal specialist Bridget Donovan. The joint investigation was conducted by the DEA New York, DEA Mexico, DEA Diversion Control Division, DEA Special Testing and Research Laboratory, United States Customs and Border Protection New York Field Office, the IRS New York Division, and United States Postal Inspection Services of New York. The Justice Department's Office of International Affairs also provided assistance. So, and then it goes on to actually list the defendants. And then the United States Attorney's Office, there's a phone number. They're being very transparent. You can call them and you can say, how's it going? How's the prosecution going? So my question to the audience, my question to anybody who's still with me after all this is, why isn't anybody talking about this? You know, this is huge. This is probably the biggest story of the year, maybe within the last 5 years. And so the question I present to you yet again is, do we have a World Economic Forum problem, or do we have a cartel border Chinese manufacturing companies problem? And why isn't anybody talking about it? And with Merrick Garland spearheading this prosecution, why is the GOP going after him to try to unseat him from his position? What happens if they're successful in getting rid of him? Does this mean that this valuable prosecution, the first of its kind, does this mean that it goes away, that it just fritters away into dust? No, this is the first of its kind. Everybody should be talking about this. So I appreciate it if you would share this broadcast, when I'm finished here. And at this point, I want to thank you for joining today and listening and really hearing what we're saying. This is really important. And earlier when I played the Scott Adams, video that he broadcasted, I want to say about 5 years ago, when his poor son stepson died of a fentanyl overdose. This is the answer to his call for justice 5 years later. This was the answer to it. So I really want people to think about that and what that means. And I feel that the COVID operation is very important, of course, but I also feel that it was kind of created to sort of cover up this prosecution, which is the first of its kind, so as not to create a panic or fear in the United States. I mean, the city of San Francisco, as I showed you, as I demonstrated, is just crawling with fentanyl. 85 or so people died in the month of August alone last month. Bodies just laying on the street dead, like my friend JJ witnessed yesterday. So, and that's a good question. A good question. Sarah asks, if Garland does go away, no one else could pick up where he leaves off. Probably so. But with him part of the prosecution, or at least, a major part, he's the Attorney General of the United States. Of course, he's spearheading this. This is a big prosecution, the first of its kind. So I do imagine that even if the Republicans were successful in unseating him, that, it would still move forward, because you've got all these other agencies that have invested most likely the last 5 years or more into unpacking all of this and finding the evidence. So we need to pay close attention to this prosecution, which is the first of its kind. So I'm going to leave you with a video I made about San Francisco. It's not very long. It's called "You Have to Break Everything for a Reset." And then I'm going to sign off after it plays. So I want to thank you for joining. And please follow us on any of our channels. We're here on YouTube and obviously Twitter. And I want to thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.
We'll be able to fly. need to find